Good morning. God bless what is great, good, and real. Today, we're going to be talking about your circles and why 1 + 1 = 3. It's a concept we've touched on before, but I want to get somewhat granular and raw around it because it's been awfully paramount in my life in its most recent immediacy. And I believe it reinforces the power of consciousness, the power of what we're trying to do, where you might be at, and where you might be thinking you're going. Interestingly, in the book that I'm also reading, what is it called again? Let me look it up real quick. It's going to kill me. Reality Transurfing. The possibility that all that was, all that is, and all that will be is already somewhat omnipresent in a way. So consider that all you have been, all you are, and all you will be is already present in a way and is either amplified or subdued based on your circle. And maybe it's even amplified, period, full stop. It's just amplified towards prosperity or amplified towards inertia and stagnation and stasis and the crippling of your lives. I also think quite relatable is this concept, the idea that we got to keep shrinking and cutting people off because we have so much accessibility and so much exposure due to the internet and the network of things and how it works. So let's start with this possibility, which you might be cutting people off, or maybe you just feel like you're very proud because you intentionally have a small circle. That might be cool. And most of y'all think the circle is small, but it's not sealed. That's a lot of what I want to drive. Think about that. You might have a small circle, but it's not sealed. It's just silence. What we'll go through today is how sort of presence leaks through loose ties and how your growth gets diluted by your people's people. So be careful how you people. As the great Alan Watts says, most people are just peopling. So if this makes it to you and you're out there right now, think about and start processing consciously your circle. And I mean like your circle, right? Not just circle, the circle around the circle. What is your tight circle? For me, it really is, I shouldn't say, it's my wife, my son, and my daughter. Certainly, that's my circle. But I have to have additional circles outside of that circle that keeps me powerful in my circle. I also can't drive myself mad only in the relationship with my wife and my children. That can be a detriment. If you stick solely to that lens and you block yourself off to the possibility and the power of the world around you, well, then you're also diluting your circle, the circle of all circles. So let's also, for argument's sake, agree that you got to have a tight circle. And what I'm talking about here is the growth for your tight circle. And be careful who you let in that circle, especially if your wife and your children or your husband and your children or whoever it is in that circle. You don't want to let people get too close to that circle. It can get dangerous. But in the same way, what we'll talk about and what I'm learning is that even if they're not in that circle and directly exposed to your tight circle, which again for me is my wife and my children, the circles I create outside of that directly impact my tight circle because it impacts me. And we'll get into the math that 1 + 1 = 3, specific to consciousness. You have a consciousness, the person you're interacting has a consciousness, and then the two of you, while you're interacting, are creating an additional consciousness. So let's consider this. You don't just inherit your circle's behaviors, you inherit their circle's values. So I have a circle, and then I interact with other circles. How everybody is interacting in that circular way creates values, creates a consciousness. And when I expose myself to that circle, I'm starting to inherit the values of that circle. You may not process this intentionally, consciously, especially because we go so into a subconscious state and we flow. And when we do, we sort of, our guards, especially if we're not constantly conscious, the way I talk about being conscious of your consciousness. You have to sort of, it's not that you're subdued, but you release, you let the guards down because you want to be open. That's the way relationships, I believe, are the most prominent and conducive to the type of possibility for growth. I don't try to hide nothing. I keep it raw and real. You keep it raw and real. But my values don't necessarily have to be your values, and your values don't have to be mine. So in that way, you're going to have values. And when I expose my value system to your value system, I'm inheriting that. It's why I discuss frequently, if you consider that you have a circle full of energy vampires, why do you feel drained? Because you're exposing your values, and maybe you're trying to heal. Maybe you're trying to help. Maybe you're a great listener. That's the gift God gave you. But if you just open yourself up constantly to being sucked on and drained of life, well, then you inherit those values. In the same way, whatever brings those people to complaining, people who have fractured relationships that they can't seem to get out of, that God told them a long time ago, you got to leave that relationship. Professional endeavors where people are just, they're quiet quitting and not bringing the value of dedication and perseverance and hard work and work ethic, that you're inheriting that because it's being released into you. And whether you're intentionally processing it or not, your subconscious and your consciousness is picking that up. So if the people you trust don't trust wisely, you're already compromised. You hear what I'm saying? That's why I'm conscious and very careful of who I trust, because I have to trust that you're trusting similar people. Otherwise, I can't create a circle with you. Now, professionally, that's why I don't stay in toxic cultures. I had one that was, I didn't realize it at the time. It was a great big organization, multi-billion-dollar organization. The culture was horrendous. Specific, you know what? The culture that was, I don't want to knock it because it helped me grow and elevate. I wouldn't be here without it. It just now it conflicts massively with who I am today. Part of what I learned was through that process. I'll talk about it a little bit later. Shape shifting. If you are inheriting your circle's values, and I have to be this way in this circle, and I have to be that way in that circle, and I have to be, it's like a chameleon effect, right? You might think you're doing something great. I could just blend in. I could blend in. No, you're value shifting. And in that way, you're already compromised. So your elevation, our elevation, doesn't require just loyalty. It requires loyalty to loyalty. You dig what I'm saying? I'm God, faith, honor, loyalty. I would love to only have a circle of people who are God, faith, honor, loyalty. You can change adjectives and synonyms and verbs and nouns however you'd like, but rhythmically, consciously, as long as you're in that flow, I can respect who you are and that you're leading with integrity and a certain level of virtuousness, and that's a culture we're creating. So I'm loyal to what I'm loyal to, and in that way, everybody's loyal to what they're loyal to. I just need to understand that what you're loyal to aligns with what I'm loyal to. Because I believe that's the fractal nature of kingdom consciousness. Hear me. Kingdom consciousness, the ability for you to expand your life in the ways that you want to expand your life, require you to network, requires you to be risk positive, not risk adverse. So you take risks in relationships, right? When I expose, if I decide I want to make moves and I want to share my content with you, I want you to subscribe, right? I'm hoping that you can help nurture the product with me. If you don't, then you create a fracture that could limit my possibilities of growth. So there's a fractal nature to the kingdom of consciousness. I keep my circle tight. I keep the circles around my circle tight, and all of it is working towards the same singular direction. I say it like this: if they ain't tight, you ain't tight. You get what I'm saying? If they ain't tight with what they need to be tight with, you ain't tight, because they're bringing their looseness to you. It's not a judgment thing. It's like, yo, how are you moving? If how you move ain't how I move relative to my principles, then your movement is conflict for my movement. Not because it doesn't have to all be negative. If you move how I move, then your movement is expansive of my movement. 1 + 1 = 3. I'm going to use my wife because this is what spurned it. We had a great conversation on our walk the other day. She saw it and she named it. she carries me with her. But not just me, she carries the weight of every conscious decision I've ever made about who gets close. You hear what I'm saying? When I allow somebody into me, I allow somebody into my wife. Why? Because I bring the weight of that emotional relationship into conversation, into consciousness, into life with my wife, into my commitment. I didn't always do it that way. In that way, it dilutes the experience of my wife. Why? If I have to hide things from her, I should really reconsider the type of relationships I'm in. I used to be like that. And it's not all egregious in the sense that, you know, I'm stepping out of my marriage per se. But if you're not aligned with the way I'm aligned today in my belief, God, faith, honor, loyalty, if I compromise that, I've just compromised my wife. Because if I compromise myself and I get caught up in something, who does it impact? You dig? Like, I can't. So every decision I make, I have to have it in context of what is the risk to my tight circle with this other circle that I'm creating. If I'm going to work every day and I'm feeling drained and I'm feeling like I'm not productive and I'm not fulfilled, that impacts my little circle. If I have people who call me, who constantly need from me, and I never get from them, and they're draining my spirit, that compromises my circle. If I'm exposed to people who are trying to network and grow and prosper in a way that doesn't align with where I'm trying to network, grow, and prosper, well, then I'm compromised. And so in that way, anything that touches me touches my little circle. It touches my wife, my son, and my daughter. Who is your circle? When somebody touches you and taps into your soul or your consciousness, it's infecting you. In my belief, as a king, my wife said it to me yesterday, I like to let you think in your new machismo and strength that you're the king. And I am, and she says you are. But she said it also to her colleague. She said one of her colleagues likes a candle. He's been working with her for, I don't know, man, probably the length of our marriage. And he says, I light candles for Jeff every day because he has to live with you. And she said, a true king lets his wife be powerful. And I believe in that. She's good. I let her spread her wings as far as she can. I offer protection. She's better than me in a lot of ways. I use her too. I use her level of consciousness, exposure, understanding, and spirit to my advantage. King energy, queen energy in its truest form. Play your role. She's her, I'm me. Together we make a third. It's not like we make one. I talked about that before. 1 + 1 does not equal 1. 1 + 1 = 3. So it's not protection through power, but protection through precision. Precision. I'm very precise and intentional with how I move, with how I pray, with how I love, with how I think, with how I make decisions. So previously, I would shapeshift because I was trying to gain acceptance. I talk about this all the time, and I don't want this ever to come off like I'm not guilty or susceptible still. I have to be like very thoughtful. Hold on, this room might be showing me a lot of love, but it might be love I don't need. So I collapse what's around me. I collapse anything that's circular that creates relationship and consciousness to keep it aligned singularly, God, faith, honor, loyalty. And I believe that's how love multiplies. I love inside my tight circle. The dude I talked to that I referenced yesterday, my son always asks, because a lot of times it's on speaker, he'll be like, yo, I love you. I love you too, my G. And my son is like, yo, you talking to a man, you tell him you love him? Yeah, I love him. I love him. That's my dog. So now when he's out, and I love him because of how he loves his life. You get what I'm saying? So I surround myself with him. We have separate conversations. We share consciousness. Whether he does and makes decisions that are different from me that I would do differently, it doesn't matter. He makes them with the same principles. He thinks about his wife. He thinks about his daughter. He thinks about his businesses. He thinks about his money. He thinks about his career. He thinks about his future. You get what I'm saying? Circles compound that way. Not by volume. Like you think because you know 1,000 people, you're strong. You might be even weaker than somebody who knows just 10 people. Why? It's not volume, it's values. 1 + 1 = 3. Here's the biggest reason why. God stays in the middle. When you create that third consciousness, that spirited consciousness, God is just there chilling, absorbing, understanding, making it connect, making it work. The power of that is this. I'm thinking about me, my wife's thinking about her, and then I'm thinking about her as I'm thinking about me. And she's thinking about me as she's thinking about her. And you create that third consciousness is the thought of not just me. That's why one plus one can't equal one. I think about me, her, and what it means for us, not what it means for me. I have this friend I talk to. I think about him and what it means for us, not what it means for me or what it means for him. My relationship with my son, my relationship with my daughter. Now, you can also amplify that. I tell this to people regularly. If you have, there's 4 of us in the house, right? My wife, my son, my daughter, and me. I have a relationship with my wife. I have a relationship with my wife and my daughter. Now, that's 4. Because when the 3 of us are talking, it's a 4th consciousness. Then you throw my son in there, that's a 5th consciousness. But now I also have a relationship, I said, with my wife and my daughter, my wife and my son. Sometimes my daughter's somewhere where she's not present in the space. So you have that level of networking and relationship. But I always think about my daughter in that way, the way I always think about my son, whether they're present or not. You see what I'm saying? So now it scales consciously. And I have to understand that when I'm scaling this and I'm networking and I'm plotting and I'm working and I'm grinding and we're sealing things, we get bigger that way. It's not in numbers and in volume. It's like, yo, when you out there thinking, you're thinking for us. You'll make better decisions. We seal it this way. You don't need a big network. You need a sealed one. It got to be tight. No leaks, no compromise, no cracks, no compromise. It's one of the do you rules, right? Naturally, I used to think connection was about reach. I got to know more people. I got to know more people. I got to go to this conference. I got to know this space. I even in IT is so broad. I got to understand, and it's not that I don't, but before where I was like, I got to understand what Wi-Fi technology is, what wired technology is, what networking is, what routing is, what security is. It's like, I need to know who the person is that understands security, that understands the Wi-Fi, and I bring them in with me. I don't need to take what they know. I let them have it. And I build strong connection. That way, when they're thinking about, yo, I'm going to make this change on the Wi-Fi network, they know I got to think about Jeff because he has applications that reside on the Wi-Fi network. And then scale that out. I got to think about Jeff because, you know, his business. I'm not expansive enough yet. I'm my own. This is what I talk about, too. You got to be tight enough to understand what goes on operationally. Right now, I run my wires. I turn the lights on. I make sure the cameras. I do everything operationally and tactically for the podcast. Right. I believe at some point the way people have specific photographers and light and light personnel and whatever is required, I'll outsource that eventually. But I got to walk in the fire right now alone. So in that way too, I can't have people who don't work as hard as I do because then it compromises my ability to work. It's about reinforcement. So when I you know, you go in the dark and you work real hard and you pray, and then you talk to somebody else who goes in the dark and works real hard and pray, you hear different messages. So it's reinforcement. I don't need to hear exactly what you're hearing. You don't need to hear exactly what I'm hearing, but I'm reinforced by the fact that you are hearing something. So the people I walk with, they don't just think about me. This is not about like, let me stop and think about like my wife, my children, my tight core. They think like me. Same principles, same values. I don't need you to be me. I don't need to be you, but we think alike. So when they're carrying me, like, yo, Jeff, I was thinking about you, because they're thinking like me, and I thought you might want to hear this or understand this piece of information. They're also carrying my wife, my children, my destiny. You get how deep this is for me when we talk about consciousness and expanding it. They're also carrying, like when you do something and I align myself with you, it directly impacts my home. That's dangerous to me, dog. So if I trust you and you trust trash, if I trust you and you trust trash, yo, a lot of different ways this thing's a trash, right? Even the lack of self-belief. I'm getting infected even when I never touch the source. So I don't have a problem with self-belief, but if I'm around a lot of people who lack self-belief, guess what just happens? All of a sudden I start hearing doubt creep up. Why? Because your circle was filled with doubters. Thank you, God. I'm alive today. I start listening to people who have 1,000,001 things to complain about. All of a sudden, I start forgetting about why I feel blessed to be alive today. That's why circles ain't just about who's in. It's also about what gets out. Covenant is a big word. I have covenant with people now. You want to flow with me? It's a binding contract, dog. And I submit to you the way I expect you to submit to me. My wife and I just talked about this. There's a level of surrender too. I'm surrendering the power of my circle. And if you ain't going to protect it, I got to cut you off. Because then my circle's compromised. I know what that life is about. I lived it. I can detect it. I'm conscious about, certain things, they got to go. It can't even be. And if I think that anyone who I believe in that's supposed to be tight with me doesn't have the same principles and values, they got to go. I talk about this regularly in the professional space. This is like business management 101. Let's say you inherit a team of 10 people. And these 10 people, you put them all on a boat, a rowboat. Everybody has to row. Everybody has to carry their weight. Some are in the front, some are in the back. Let's just say you're telling everybody to row left, and 9 out of the 10 are rowing left, and 1 is rowing right. The logic says you want to focus on that one person because you think if I get that person to row the right way, then the other 9 will be satisfied. Here's what the reality of how consciousness and how emotional relationships work. The 9 people are doing exactly what you told them to do and you're ignoring them for the one person who's doing exactly what you said not to do, which teaches the other people, well, why bother doing what you said to do if you're only going to focus here on the one person that's not? And you're like, well, my job is to get them to row. No, my job is to tell you to row. You don't row, you off the boat. You're off. I don't even think about it. That is already enough character for me. We all agreed. It's not like a demand. Yo, you want to be on this boat? We got to row left. You row right, you gone. I'm not going to let the other 9 suffer for that one person. I'm not going to let myself suffer for one person. Bugging. And yes, I'll row the boat myself if I have to. But we also can't be that naive and ignorant and egocentric. We need people on the boat with us. And God forbid now you got 4 rowing left, 5 rowing right, and 1 not rowing. Now your boat is not going nowhere. Anybody who is not rowing and flowing in the same direction as you is dangerous to the success you see for your life. And it's not just like, go be the greatest influencer of all time. It's like, go be happy and love yourself. You can't love yourself when you're around people who don't love themselves constantly. Got people calling you, I need you, something happening. All right. Keep having that. And then keep wondering why you feel down, why your spirit feels robbed. It's math. It's all math. You got somebody on the boat going the same way. You don't want to kick them off. Now everybody suffers. Now, those 9 people you care about that you keep saying, I care about you, I care about you. Why are you letting that person ruin us then? Let's get into the consciousness math. 1 mind plus 1 mind equals 3 fields of influence. Let me check the chat. I haven't checked the chat in a while. What up, chat? What's good, chat? Where you at? Huh? All right, let's get back to getting busy. Consciousness math. 1 mind and 1 mind equals 3 fields of influence. Yours, theirs, and the shared spiritual center. You get it? You all meet in the middle, dog. And they're flowing their stream of consciousness. You're flowing your stream of consciousness. And it's all just permeating and percolating. And you're thinking about each other. This tri-field, it amplifies when all 3 are aligned in value. I say faith, loyalty, and honor. That value could be faithless, loyalist, honorless. It could be doubt, anxiety, stress. Whatever the values are, they amplify. So you really got to be asking yourself, what is your code? because misalignment fractures the third field first, which is the relational container of God. I said this to you a long time ago. I constantly now pray on it in this way. I ask God that I know that everything is God, because God is all. God is the infinite. There is no limit to God. And so in that way, everything is God. So when I release my version of God and my faith in God and consciousness, I ask it to go seek itself, because we're just attracting and drawing in and creating consciousness for ourselves. We're creating kingdoms for ourselves. We're expressing God as ourselves. And when I do it with a strict set of disciplines, it doesn't fracture me. It keeps me straight. It keeps me singular. It keeps me happy. It keeps me loved. And then it keeps God loved. If I'm simply trying to continue to orchestrate circles of love around God, however I spell God, right? I don't care. We talked about this before. I'm not here to tell you what you should do to find God. Read a book, read all books, pray in all different ways. Come to your own conclusions. Part of that for me is God. Really is the foundational component of all things God and consciousness. So misalignment fractures the third field first, which is the relational container of God. Tightness isn't just fewer people. It's about fewer contradictions. I'll repeat it again. It's important. Tightness isn't about fewer people. It's about fewer contradictions. If you collapse your circle and everyone inside keeps theirs collapsed, you're now part of a multi-tiered, value-coded network of exponential remembrance. This is the inverse of crowd culture. This is conscious fidelity. If you collapse your circle and everybody comes to you with a collapsed, nothing penetrates, nothing can break us. This is discipline, fortitude, intentionality, just stamina, intentionality around God, faith, honor, loyalty, the striving for excellence, being your own hunter, killing what you eat, eating what you kill. The aggressive pursuit of infiniteness in our finite worlds. I collapse like that. You collapse like that. Everybody else collapses like that. And you may never, you talk about 6 degrees of separation. I may, like the people, my wife, they don't know I have you, but she speaks like me. They all know me without knowing me, because my remembrance, my flow emanates from her. This is super deep to me. I don't know how we don't all get this. So I have to be careful what you're doing with your circle. But if we all keep it tight, and we all around the same values, it's a value-coded network of exponential remembrance, a reminder of who we all are, built around consciousness of love. Yes, there's all those obstacles and trials and tribulations and fractures and arguments and conflict. That's part of it. We can't be emotionally immature that way. We ain't always going to get along at the same time. But we can have those open conversations. We can be real and raw and just be specific about our specifics. Why? Because everything is, we know it's at the core value. It's built and derived from a certain set of values. I don't have to worry about where it's coming from. All the ideas ain't the best. All the experiences ain't the best. But when it's rooted like that, that's the inverse of crowd culture. You want a lot of likes. Like I tell you, are you stronger with 1,000 people who and 1,000 subscribers who are all locked in, who come back every day, or 1 million people where they check on you once every quarter? And it's not even everybody. It's conscious fidelity. It is expansiveness to the infiniteness. This is available to everybody. We're not all bad. None of us really are bad. And that's why I keep telling, I talk, especially in my circles, there's not a question of wrong. It's a question of, what do we intend to do? What is the outcome we're looking for? Where are we rowing this boat? If we're rowing this boat and we're rowing this boat and we catch a leak, cool, we got to patch it. If we hit land, we got to explore it. We got to the wrong place. Well, we got